happening just days after Israel formally recognized the Armenian genocide, a move that Ankara is furious about. And it's also happening days before Turkey hosts the entire NATO alliance at Erdogan's palace in Ankara, an alliance that includes Israel's closest ally, the United States. Well, joining us now in the studio is Dr. Eytan Cohen Yanarocak. He's a Turkey expert at the Moshe Dayan Center at Tel Aviv University. Doctor, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover here. You know, how alarming is this language coming from a NATO foreign minister, essentially calling Israel a burden that humanity can no longer bear?
Well, Turkey is, it's a unique country. It's a NATO country, but at the same time, its foreign minister can use such a language. Well, since October the 7th, we are seeing that the Turkish administration, the most senior leaders like Erdogan or Fidan, they are conducting a very comprehensive delegitimization campaign against the state of Israel. They are also using so many different nicknames like virus, rogue state, genocidal state, murder state, etc. So, this statement, even if it's, totally unacceptable, is not something, surprising. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we still did not hear any kind of condemnations from the NATO countries. And obviously, we can understand why, because Turkey's geopolitical importance is very important. There is also this Russian threat on the European countries, and Turkey is considered as a very important arms provider.
Do you think the United States has essentially handed the entirety of Western Europe on a silver platter to Erdogan at this point? Obviously, this kind of deterioration of American-European ties makes it so that there is a certain dependence now on Turkey, especially given its military capabilities that Europe cannot refuse. And the decision to, not speak out against commentary like this, which is, it is, you could say, calling for the destruction of Israel, the genocide of Israelis. That's directly what the words are actually saying, shows that perhaps Europe isn't worried anymore about what the U.S. has to say.
Well, from the European perspective, when I compare the European foreign policy vis-a-vis Turkey before, I can see many differences. Mm-hmm. It's not only Israel. We are seeing the constant deterioration of democracy in Turkey. For instance, the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, is in prison. There is this arbitrary judiciary in Turkey. Recently, a very important comedian, a very famous comedian, he was sent behind the bars only for criticizing Erdogan. Normally, the Europe that we, knew would have criticized Turkey for that, but even we did not hear such things.
Right.
Apart from that, what about Cyprus and Greece? A European country, Republic of Cyprus, is under occupation since 1974. So do we see any kind of a concrete action from the Europeans? No. So, even when we are looking at the European countries, they are divided. For instance, we see Italy and Spain. They are engaging with the Turkish defense industry more and more. Mm-hmm. The Spanish bought the Hurkush aircraft, and the Italians are engaged with their Leonardo company with Turkish Baykar. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we are seeing the Greek and the Cypriot together with, they're making this alliance with Israel. So we are not seeing a common European foreign policy, generally. And therefore, we cannot basically expect from the Europeans also to condemn Israel, in a general way. Mm-hmm. And this is very much disappointing from the Israelis' point of view, definitely, because these words are totally unacceptable.
Of course, we've heard Trump tout his close relationship with Erdogan, this alleged bromance. He says it's the reason that he's even showing up to this summit, this NATO summit in the first place, given his criticism of NATO and what, the United States has contributed to the organization. How concerned do you think the United States should be about the strength of Turkey, especially when Trump is no longer president?
That's a great question. Well, we can definitely understand from the fact that the United States is not providing the F-35s. Yes, there are some statements that, some officials in the U.S. administration are saying that they are thinking out loud to provide them to Turkey. But long story short, bottom line, we do not see that these F-35s are provided to Turkey because of the CAATSA sanctions. Instead, we are seeing that they are providing them the jet engines. Again, given Turkey's antagonistic foreign policy vis-a-vis the state of Israel, this should also concern the Israeli decision makers. But when I'm comparing these two choices, these two options, whether to see Turkey equipped with F-35s and on the other hand, seeing Turkey only getting these jet engines so that they can put it in their own self-manufactured jets. So the second option is much more preferable from the Israeli point of view. The Americans, since the early days of the Cold War, they always try to balance between, for instance, Greece and Turkey. And in this regard, when they are giving Greece these F-35s, now because of the CAATSA sanctions, they cannot provide the Turks these F-35s. So they want to balance it. Why? Because if they are not going to balance, they are very much concerned that Turkey may make a further rapprochement with China and Russia, and this might be very problematic for the NATO alliance.
Right. The final thing that I just want to ask you is really about how the Turkish public views this entire situation, especially in regards to the state of Israel, when we are seeing these violent comments being made by the foreign minister of Turkey. We know that, Turkey and Israel were once friends. Israelis traveled all the time to Turkey. You are a Turkish Jew yourself who immigrated here from Turkey. Is it safe to be a Jew in Turkey today?
Well, if you're not going to be affiliated with the state of Israel, and if you're not going to defend Israel, I assume that it should be secure. And I know that the Jews in Turkey are not going in the streets with Jewish symbols like kippah or any other things. And so this is a little problematic because like in everywhere in the world, unfortunately, we do see a very serious rise of anti-Semitism also in the Turkish street. And the relationship is very complicated. Even once upon a time, these secular Turks were a kind of, friendly for the state of Israel. Since October the 7th, unfortunately, they are only hearing anti-Israel propaganda by the Turkish TV, and this passive propaganda that even if they are, apolitic people, when they hear in a constant manner this anti-Israel, rhetoric. So unfortunately, their also attitude towards Israel is not very positive.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us, Chai, as per usual. Always interesting to hear your take. We're going to be turning to a totally different story now.